Right, Anna, here we go. It's been a while.
It has indeed. How are you?
I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. I'm really excited about this conversation. So, for those that don't know, Anna was responsible for fixing me. Essentially, we worked together for, I'm not sure, was it like maybe 7, 8, 9 months, something around that last year?
Yeah, about 8, 9 months, I think.
Yeah. So Anna's background, relationship with food, and I'm going to say the word expert because I don't know if you would claim that word or not, but absolute expert, online coach, now doing some business mentoring as well, I believe, alongside Amelia and all that sort of stuff. So quite excited to talk to you because you've got quite a bit of experience. I always start with the same sort of question, and I try and word it in a way where I don't sound like Stephen Bartlett, right? But I think it's important to know like how people ended up doing what they're doing now. So I'm not on about like upbringing and all that sort of stuff. What I think is actually quite interesting about you is you were a bodybuilder and have gone literally like full circle right to the other end of the spectrum now with what you're doing. So can you talk to us a little bit about that? How you got into like bodybuilding first, then into coaching and take us to where you are now?
Yes, so pre-bodybuilding, I'd struggled with my relationship with food. I had experience with eating disorder. Then it was more kind of like disordered eating because as much as I love the NHS, once you're weight restored, you're fixed. Let's ignore the fact that I was binging every night just to make sure I made weight. So teens and early 20s were very not great. And I kind of fell into bodybuilding. I'd got the opportunity to be trained by a gym owner that was local to me, who was looking to make their bodybuilding gym more female friendly. And then it kind of snowballed. And I am not ashamed to admit I thought bodybuilding, like on the outside, it's a picture of health. Like you train well, you eat well. I thought it was going to fix me.
Mega
I thought I was
disciplined,
finally,
yeah, all of that. Yeah.
I thought it was going to fix me. I thought once well, even just kind of stepping into that world, I'd finally feel happy in my body too.
Mhm.
And I mean, I competed, I think, for 4 years. Every time it was, I mean, I get PTSD. My old prep coach is now circling Instagram with carnivore diet, and it's not great for me to see him constantly. But it was a very restrictive diet. Every off season, I'd just binge because I'd not been allowed to eat everything. Still felt crap in my body because you're always comparing yourself to whoever else is on stage and what you can do better. And if you didn't place, what you need to do
Yeah.
more of, or even if you do place, how can I get better? I finished bodybuilding, like I'd finished as a junior. My coach said, if I want to make it, then I need to start thinking about steroids. And I was like, maybe I'll just take a year out and see how I feel about that. And it was in that year, I was like, I don't know how to eat. I have
Yeah.
no idea what I'm doing. I don't know how to train aside from what the judges want to see. I like fell out of love with it. And that's when I'd started seeing Amelia on Instagram, who was talking about binge eating. And at the time, it was like a real hush hush subject. I was like, oh my God, finally, someone understands her.
Yeah.
Someone understands me. So I reached out to her, started coaching with her at the same time I just qualified as a PT and I was studying nutrition. And a couple of years into coaching, once I'd qualified, Amelia asked if I wanted to join her team. And I mean, the rest is pretty much history now.
Yeah. So that entry into bodybuilding, I know a few. I know a few bodybuilders, got a few mates that are bodybuilders, but I don't really know too much about it. Obviously, I've never been in that world myself. Do you think it's a common theme that people get into bodybuilding to mask their issues that they've already got, or maybe because it's more like an accepted thing in those sort of circles? Is that kind of how it was for you, or was it just happened to be at the same time you got into bodybuilding and you had those issues, or did you get into bodybuilding because you had those issues? Does that make sense?
It does make, and I don't know, genuinely, I don't know if I'd have been in a better place with food. I don't know if I'd have done it.
Yeah.
but I do know it lures those people in. It lures
Yeah.
a certain type of people into the industry. I am not kind of putting a blanket over everybody and saying everyone that does bodybuilding has disordered eating or more. But it certainly, like I said, I thought it would fix me. People, whether they've kind of had a history, and again, it's still under that ruse of control.
Yeah.
But people think it's healthy. So
Yeah, it does seem to be, especially at the minute, obviously, we are now like back in season, I guess, the competitions happening and stuff like that. Again, I've got a lot of mates that bodybuild who are fully aware of everything that comes with it, and they know that it's gonna. They get into it knowing the downsides of it, knowing the negatives of it, and I think that from what I see, and again, I'm completely on the outside of it, and looking at things like what I think is quite objectively, is it is glamorized, right? Like a lot of this stuff is glamorized, and it gives people a way to almost justify the things that they maybe need to do a little bit of work on. That's not to, for 1 second, to say that like you said, every single bodybuilder has disordered eating. Absolutely not the case. I think there could be a lot more to be done around like the education around it. Of look, think about this before you go down this route. But I know so many people now, online coaches that have never competed before, that are now prepping for whatever reason. For whatever reason, it's interesting. So I also, this is the bit that might get me in trouble and might piss a lot of people off, but I don't, from what I understand coaching to be now, I don't know many prep coaches that do any coaching, that actual asking of questions and connecting with people and trying to empower people to think for themselves. And a lot of it, from what I see, and again, completely not in the industry, it is very much dictator style, prescription style. Go away, do this, eat this, sleep for this amount of time, drink this, take this, and you will get the result. And that's great for some people. But one of the things that I think is interesting about you is you've been on the receiving end of that side of things. When you first started coaching, did you go straight in with Amelia, or were you already coaching people before you started coaching for Amelia or with Amelia?
So I was training in person, PT, but I'd not coached anyone. And it's interesting because I think obviously I've got the experience of how to be coached from Amelia, and that was like nothing I'd ever had before.
Mm-hmm.
Does it work for every person? Like, in a sense, I think there's varying levels, but I would still say that even on kind of people that prefer just kind of straight shortcut answers, like what in that sense, it's still so much more than I ever received from a prep coach.
Yeah. I understand. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on, is because having been on the receiving end of what you do, that is, to me, that's coaching at its purest, as in it's actual exploration and giving you and empowering the client to think for themselves and to figure things out and to develop self-awareness. And it's a lot of questions, and that's why I wanted to get you on. One of the reasons that I wanted to get you on is because I wanted to see like your kind of thoughts on the two, because you've got experience of both sides of things, of like coaching as you now know it, completely different to coaching that you've experienced back in your prep days. And it's something that a point that I try and make. I don't tiptoe around it. I don't tiptoe around it at all. And it's this thing that I think a lot of online coaches need to understand, is it's not just about setting people stuff and telling them what to do. And there's so much negative that can come with that, of just like, do this, or you don't want it bad enough. How bad do you want it? Unfortunately, we're going to have to remove 25 grams of carbs and all that sort of stuff. It's actually getting people to think for themselves, right? So when you first started coaching, being coached by Amelia and being on the receiving end of it, I imagine that opened your eyes quite a lot.
Oh God, yeah. Like finally I was being kind of asked my preference and building autonomy, which is something like I'd never had before. I just did what I was told, and that was that. Whereas now I was being asked to like monitor how I feel and how does food make me feel? And am I hungry? Like, do I need to eat, or am I just doing it because it's automatically drilled in that I eat every 3 hours?
What was that like at the time, if you can remember, like going from complete rigidity to almost like taking the reins off and being like, here, go and figure it out?
I'm always mindful when I say this, because I don't want people to think like this is the state that you need to be in. But I was at that point where I just wanted help.
Yeah.
I still wanted someone to tell me what to do. And Amelia was really clever in kind of how she did it. And first of all, we started on just building more variety into meals. And then we moved to tracking when I was like, okay, if I eat, I don't know, pasta, the world's not going to end. Like that was where I was at.
Yeah.
But as soon as that trust in myself started building, then I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this. I can actually tune into what I want and how much I want, rather than a meal plan on an A4 piece of paper.
Do you know what's really interesting is that's what my experience of working with you was at first as well. It was going from, so obviously I'd dieted pretty aggressively for nearly 2 years before my heart surgery. And then after it, I just couldn't get, I now know why. I just couldn't get things going again. I was like, why can't I not do, I've done it before. I know what I need to do and can't make it work. And I was just fighting against it. And that was my experience of working with you at first. It was all the work we did on like actual hunger and recognizing hunger and fullness and all that sort of stuff. I didn't ever think I'll know what to do. I'll know how to do this. There'll be a point where I will be able to trust that I'm hungry or not hungry and actually trust my instincts and my feelings and stuff like that. When I first started working with you, I was like, I knew it worked because I'd seen all of the team, all of your team talking about it, and I'd seen everything on social media, and I've done EIQ and I knew the research and all that sort of stuff. But I just couldn't think that it would ever work for me. It was mad. What is that a common theme with people that you work with?
Yeah. And I mean, nobody likes the corny line like just trust the process.
Yeah.
And someone like you that obviously wants the research, wants the evidence. But I think with so many people, they're like, well, I've tried everything else, so why is this going to be any different? But maybe I'm the exception. Maybe it just doesn't work for me. Maybe we try something new and stay open and move towards like growth mindset rather than fixed mindset. And let's just see what happens.
How do you go about, so again, there'll be coaches watching or listening to this. How do you go about starting to break that, almost that like, have that breakthrough with a client that straight away is like, yes, they sign up, they know they need the help, but they're like, but it won't work for me. I'm different. Again, like you've just said, they like that justification. They like that excuse. They almost have that identity. How do you go about breaking that down?
So either, I mean, I love the reflection questions and asking them to journal, or we have a bit of a chat on a call about it. And okay, where have these beliefs come from? Because yeah, there'll be plenty probably of evidence that, well, things haven't worked before. So what's going to be different about it this time? But as soon as you start inviting a bit of curiosity and like the simple question of like, what if? Well, what if I'm wrong? What does that look like? What if I am capable of having a good relationship with food? How's that going to change things? And as soon as there's that little glimmer of, well, things could look different, then there's more of that motivation to go, okay, yeah, I'm more open to trying this now.
It's tough, and again, having been on the receiving end of it and seeing the sort of stuff that you guys talk about, and again, even some of the stuff that I did with like body and brain clients, you've literally got to almost fight yourself. Like you've got this identity of, I had this identity of, I've been overweight my entire life. Yes, I've lost some weight before the surgery, but now nothing's working. I've tried everything. I've done this. I've done that. I've cut my calories. It's not going to work for me. So like that identity. But what I also came to realize, again, big fan of journaling, prompted journaling anyway, of like going through that reflection and self-awareness stuff that I do on a day-to-day basis anyway, I was like, yeah, but you are benefiting from this, mate. You are getting to use this as an excuse. You are getting to justify going out and eating whatever you want at the weekends and all that sort of stuff. So if you've got that identity and you've had that identity for a significant period of time, quite literally having to fight yourself, it's especially like you've just said there, you've made a good point, is that the bit that I don't think enough people pay attention to is you probably have got evidence that it won't work because everything that you've tried before didn't. So why would you think it works? Why would you think there's a chance? And you are right. It's such a I can't remember how many times I've said it. The trust the process phrase. Yeah. But unfortunately, you've got to go through a period of nose to the grindstone and doing it anyway. Which is, again, I don't think enough people pay attention to.
No, definitely. But one of the most helpful things that clients can start to do if they are in that mindset of, I'm the exception, I'm never going to change, like I'm a failure because everything else, like you said, you've got all that evidence that it's never worked in the past, it's to start actively practicing like imperfect action and prove to yourself that you're still good enough. Because then it challenges that belief. And like you were saying around identity as well, that's where like the concept of like flourishing health comes in, and who are you away from, like I work a lot with ex-competitors. Well, who are you away from bodybuilding, nutrition, your training? And as soon as you start bringing more of that into life, then it's less about the food and the training in general.
Yeah. You work with a lot of ex-competitors. I'm right in thinking, I think, that you work with a lot of coaches too.
Yeah.
Which is why I came to you. Like, I know that you've got the entire team. I know you've all got your specialities. And I was like, right, Anna works with coaches. I was a coach myself at the time as well. I was like, I need somebody that understands this, because there's almost that feeling, and hopefully this next bit, what I want to dive into now, there'll be some people watching this that it maybe shines a bit of a mirror in front of them, and they're like, oh shit, because there's always that feeling of being a fraud. Because I help people lose fat, and I also did some, nowhere near the extent that you guys do, some relationship with food work with people after having done the IQ and all that sort of stuff. And you can feel like such a fraud. You can feel like such a fraud when you're like, I tell my clients to do this, but I'm definitely not ordering Domino's. I tell my clients to do this, but I'm not going to eat out if I can't track it. Like, what do you mean I can't borrow calories? Like, it's such a weird thing. How many not an exact number, but I know you work with a lot of coaches. How many coaches feel that way from your experience?
Oh, I would say kind of 90% of them, if not more, feel like they're a fraud in some way, shape or form. And underneath it all, like, we've both been there, but we forget, like, yes, you're a coach, but you're also human, and you're not immune to having your own struggles. I mean, there are so many reasons why we might struggle with food or body image, but coaching in itself, there's a massive pressure, both internal and external. So again, like, why are we beating ourselves up when, not to say it's inevitable, but it's going to be hard to not let it impact us.
And it is tough, because if you're coaching somebody and you're talking about calories all day, or you're talking about food all day, or you're talking about training all day, all that sort of stuff, a large part of your mental bandwidth is put on those things. So then to not be hyper focused on that sort of stuff in your own life, in your personal life, in your day-to-day life, it's really, really tough. So how would you help people kind of like create that separation between, I need to be focused on this for my job, but also like I need to make sure that I'm looking after myself as well?
So I think two parts in this, in working on your own relationship with food, so that like you can sit down and set macros for a client and not give it a second thought, because that's your work. Mm-hmm. But in that sense, that's where the separation comes in. You are a coach. That's what you do. Outside of that, doesn't need to impact you.
Yeah. Easier said than done sometimes, though.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And this is where, like, catching yourself if you are preoccupied outside of work with those sorts of things, and exploring, okay, well, why? What purpose are these thoughts serving me, and why am I giving them so much weight?
I also think, and I felt this way before I'd discovered, like, before I'd done the IQ and stuff like that. I also think that a lot of coaches, I've not been in fitness forever. I got into fitness at 28, was I 28? 29 years old. And I'd had no intention of doing so before. I also think there's a lot of coaches out there that have probably been in this area, in this industry, their entire life. They've been in shape their entire life, and they might not know any different. Like, what's normal to them, they might not actually realize until they start to see things online, maybe, or they do a course like EIQ, or they start to follow pages maybe like yours, or any of the other ET PhD coaches. Or there's a lot more people out there talking about relationship with food and body image stuff now, which is fantastic. But I also think that I spoke to Sophia this morning about this. I don't think people are doing it with bad intentions. I just think a lot of people don't know any better.
Yeah, no, definitely. And obviously, like, if that's your experience, and particularly if you're a new coach, there can be that, well, it worked for me.
Yeah.
So
this is a nice little segue into my next question, actually. Yeah.
Because I mean, I'll be completely honest. When I was both training people in person and when I started like doing online clients training programs, I would do the bro splits because everybody, like every girl, wanted glutes and shoulders, and that's all. Like, they wanted that X frame, and then I'm like,
yeah,
okay, but
yeah,
but I mean, that's the beauty as we learn and grow as coaches.
Yeah. So that leads me on to something that I wanted to speak to you about, because it's annoying me at the minute. So it must be annoying. Well, maybe I can't ever imagine you being annoyed. You seem like this. Then, like, yeah. So there's this. I see it everywhere. So you must see it everywhere. Me and Maria were actually talking about it the other day. Of people thinking that their own experience with things like disordered eating and or eating disorders entitles them and gives them the knowledge and the experience to actually work with people that are going through those issues themselves. And again, probably got the best intentions, probably have been through the journey themselves. That must be annoying you at the minute, because I see it everywhere.
Yes and no. Yes and no. I think checking in, like, have you got the coaching skills behind it? Have you got enough space between your own experience and supporting someone else with theirs, that it's not going to get into that messy and you'll see it through your own lens? And I know just what you're going through because I've been there too.
Yeah.
Because I mean, ultimately, and I know Amelia will say this herself too, like, how we coach is, but like, there's no course on relationship with food coaching. Like, it's what we've learned, and it's been self-led in that sense, in research and experience and trying things out. But if you are wanting to do these things, like, you need to make sure that you've got tools to support clients with, and it's not just, well, I followed someone on Instagram and it worked for me. So
yeah. To be fair, I think my maybe I skirted around the question. It was more down the people that have previously had eating disorders, and then telling people that they can help them with their binge eating, or telling people that they can cure whatever they're going through any form of online coaching. And I actually made the point the other day at the event that I was at on Saturday, is that there are very, very few people qualified or insured to actually work with anybody with eating disorders. And I think one or two you've got as your team.
Yes. So we have Roz, our dietitian, on our team. So she is the only coach that's qualified to work with anyone with an eating disorder. We have had, and I include myself in this, like a couple of other coaches that have with permission from doctors.
Yeah.
And also with the support of a therapist. Like, without those two things,
yeah,
no, it's a absolute no.
Yeah, that's the thing that's annoying me, is seeing a lot of people talk about that. And again, like I said, potentially with the best intentions, potentially genuinely believing so, but it's such a dangerous area to be working with people, because you could say something without any knowledge, or like I said, with the best intentions, that could actually make things worse for people. And it's how do you think as an industry, what do you think needs to happen for that to start to be solved, that problem to start to be solved, of people thinking that just because they've been through something, like, it's easy for me to say, I lost 70 kilos so I can help you lose weight. That's kind of okay. But I've been through an eating disorder so I can help you with yours. Not okay. And like, as in, just because I've been through one. What do you think needs to happen for us to start to deal with that issue?
Gosh, I mean, I think some of the trouble is like, people will throw about binge eating disorder, and this isn't to water down their experience, but they might be struggling with binge eating, which is different from the disorder. And I think if a coach can have that chat run through of kind of questionnaire to make sure that they are within their scope of practice, it's so vital. Understanding that eating disorder is not solely relationship with food, it's mental health.
Yeah.
Are you qualified to work within that scope of practice?
Yeah.
And if you can't answer those things, like, for me, it always comes down to, like, first, do no harm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if I can't 100% say, yeah, I'm totally going to be okay working with you, I would refer out.
I had a conversation last week with a coach, and they'll be okay because it was a really productive conversation. And I'm obviously not going to name him, but I had a conversation with a coach who openly said that they'll help people with binge eating disorder, but had never heard of the DSM-5.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know what to. I don't know what to tell you. So we ended up talking for like 40 minutes back and forth about it, and again, it was really productive. I just think that people that do know better, people like I've made a point of starting to do it now. I've pulled people to one side and been like, actually, like, can I just like have a conversation with you about this? The only way we're going to actually get anywhere with it is actually talking to people, and luckily every single time that I've done that personally, it's gone well, because like I said, people do have good intentions.
Yeah. I think all coaches underneath have the heart of a helper. Like, we just want to make sure everybody's happy.
That's a very nice way of saying people pleasing.
Yeah.
The heart of a helper, I like it.
But we do. I mean, like, I will say, in the past, I have been more of a fixer and less of a coach.
Yeah.
Whereas, obviously, we want to think of our role as a coach, but underneath it, there's that heart of the helper, and we just want to support people. And like you said, it's not necessarily, well, it's never bad intentions, but we think we can support them in a way, and it might not be the best help.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I'm just looking at my questions. I've got one more question around this whole eating disorder, disordered eating thing. And it was actually, and again, it's from a conversation that I had with Maria yesterday, is that, remember, not so long ago, so maybe last year, people started to refer to themselves as like an anxious person. Like it almost became cool to be like an anxious girly, and people were like sharing their tablets and again, breaking the stigma down, fantastic, but almost like got to the point where it was kind of like glamorizing things. Like there was people making t-shirts that said like only cool girls take serotonin and only cool people take like that sort of thing. Do you think, and it was Maria that actually made this point, and we've been talking about it since, do you see that? I see this with like eating disorder versus disordered eating. Like it's kind of cool. It's almost like glamorized these days in social media to say, oh yeah, I used to have disordered eating. I used to be this, but then nobody ever wants to actually sit and open up and be like, oh, actually, no, I really struggled and had to go to the doctors and all that sort of stuff. And this talk of like disordered eating, yes, it's breaking the stigma down and it's enabling people to talk about it, but where does that stop being helpful and start being harmful?
It's such a tricky one because, again, like those posts are typically done with the best intentions in like recovery, healing is possible. Here's how great things are looking for me now.
Yeah.
But when you are in that place yourself, then obviously it is going to trigger all sorts of comparison. And that's where, yes, we want to be mindful of what we're posting and how we're posting. But also there needs to be some responsibility in what we're exposing ourselves to.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Particularly if you're struggling with something and then you're going out your way and you're curating your Instagram feed to be full of meme pages that are making light of the thing that you're struggling with. And
yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know what I've been looking at, but my like explore page is full of, at the moment, lots of ED recovery accounts. And even with all the work that I've done, I'm like, I don't know if I want to be watching this.
yeah.
And I think so many people, again, they're doing it with the best intention of like, this is real, this is raw, but whether it's accountability for themselves too. But so many people, that is going to be all sorts of awful for them to see.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's tough. And again, it's tough to, as a coach, as somebody that's posting that stuff. Maybe you do help people with relationship with food and with disordered eating, and maybe you have done the qualifications and you can actually support people. You can't be. It's how do you post without you? There's always going to be the chance of upsetting somebody, and it's that whole like, yes, this post might be damaging to somebody that's currently going through an eating disorder, but the people that I'm trying to help aren't those people. You can't audit every single post, and you'd never be able to post anything because it is such a tricky area to navigate. And like you said, they do no harm, but if you try and do no harm to absolutely anybody, you'd never post anything.
Oh yeah. You can't post anything with any meaning or any help.
So I guess it's just figuring out how you can best serve the people that you want to help, and almost like, I guess, not attaching yourself to anything else and just clearing your conscience about it, because it's tough, right? Especially with the sort of stuff you post, like you and all the team post.
Yeah. There's, I mean, there has to be that acceptance that whatever you put out there is likely gonna upset or trigger someone in some way. But that's from the place that they're at. They're seeing it from their own lens.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I know whatever I'm putting out, like 9 times out of 10, and I think, well, the dog might help people if I post about him.
Dog definitely helps people, mate.
But 9 times out of 10, I am providing value, I am providing help, and I can let that go. If there is, if someone were to say, comment or message me about a post, again, it's having that confidence in yourself that it's not a you thing, it's a them thing.
Yeah.
But also being open to learning.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the theme of social media, something else that I've seen a lot is this whole idea of there's no such or this whole idea, this whole theme of this whole topic of there's no such thing as intuitive eating. People that intuitive eat can only do that because they've tracked for years and years and years, and they know what they're putting in the mouth and they know what's on the plate and all that sort of stuff. I've seen more posts about that recently than, again, maybe it's just because I'm paying more attention, maybe it's because I'm following more coaches now, but again, it's an education thing. It's an education until I'd done the IQ, I had no idea about intuitive eating, the actual method, the actual like research-based way of going about things versus what people think intuitive eating is, which is I'm just going to eat whatever I want whenever I want.
Yeah.
So again, without just saying to people, read a book, like, because that's quite damaging to people too, right? This narrative of there's no such thing as intuitive eating, you have to track to be able to get there. What can be done about that?
I always like reminding people that we're born natural intuitive eaters, and it's all of the other stuff that like we lose that inner knowing and that intuition. And so it's relearning again how to listen to your body, relearning what foods actually make you feel good. But in terms of kind of like the need to track, like you said, this is where there's that misunderstanding as to what intuitive eating actually is, because it's still with regards to your health. And at ET like, we don't say that we're intuitive eaters, but we practice eating intuitively.
Yeah.
So yes, you might still be mindful of your protein servings throughout the day, but not stress if you miss a serving once or twice throughout the week, because actually ice cream over chicken and rice is more favorable occasionally.
I've said to so many coaches since I worked with you that I think, even if they think that they're okay, I think every coach should come and work with you guys just for a period of time, just to see what it's actually all about. Because you hear this whole, it's not about the food, and I do think that it is on a little bit of a level. It's always going to be about the food, but it's not really about the food. Like it's not about the food. Very little of what we did together when I was with your client was about the food as such. It was never really about numbers. We still had fat loss as a goal. So people think that, oh, you can't work with a relationship. You fucking can. I'm telling you for a fact you can. It is about, and this is where I think a lot of coaches go, it is about emotional regulation. It is about connecting with yourself. It is about self-awareness. And those things to teach if you're a coach that's only ever come from a fitness, quote unquote, background, as in nutrition and programming. It's fucking the amount of stuff to learn is mad. And I genuinely think that you guys should put some sort of program together for coaches that coaches can come and do, and just to kind of like open people's eyes. So on that whole idea of that, if you've got clients that are struggling with the food and all that sort of stuff, but it's not really about the food, what kind of tips and advice, and I want to spend a bit of time talking about this, because this whole idea of helping clients connect with like themselves and deal with setbacks and emotional regulation is what I talk about now, right? It's quote unquote adherence. It's being able to adhere to things, but it's not about the calories. What tips have you got for people that aren't just come and sign up with me? Where can people actually learn about that sort of stuff?
I mean, follow any of us, and it's the stuff that we talk about day in, day out. Listen to the ETPHD podcast. But in terms of like looking at how you can best support clients in that sense, like read The Joy of Half a Cookie. Read, if you want to, about intuitive eating. What's it's going to escape me. Break binge eating, emotional intelligence. Like, these are all things that are really going to support you yourself, but also in terms of how you support your clients.
Yeah, and the idea of reading those things and going and implementing them with their clients might be quite daunting for some coaches, especially if you've got no kind of like experience in that sort of thing yourself. But I can speak from personal experience. When I started this whole topic of mindset, right, buzzword or not, when I started actually learning about that, implementing it in my own life, and then breaking it down for clients, the results that I got with people, client satisfaction, and my business like skyrocketed. Like it's not just, it wasn't just about, it was no longer about the food and about the training and all that sort of stuff. It was actually very little about that. It was all the rest of the stuff, and the difference that it'll make is insane. But if you've been one of those coaches that's like a weekly check-in, 30-second voice note reply, maybe a monthly call if you're lucky, the thought of like bridging that gap from there to being able to support clients with all of this stuff, it's a daunting one, but it's definitely one that's worth doing.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, in terms of it feeling daunting, like, this is where, again, going back to what we were saying about flourishing health, like, this is where you can really get to know your clients, like, outside of what they're eating, outside of what they're doing at the gym. How are they feeling? What's going on in their lives? Like, what are their stress levels like? Because all of these things are going to be impacting. Like, you can still be a great coach that supports people with their nutrition and training, and they're only going to benefit from you getting to know them even better and on a deeper level.
Yeah, for sure. And that what you've just said there is I talk to people that do the amplifier all the time. Is like, once you've got, unless you're working with a very specialist thing, for example, gut health or type 2 diabetics, type 1 diabetics, any of these things, once you've got enough, quote unquote, enough, whatever enough is, knowledge about nutrition and about training, you don't need to know like everything on a cellular level. You don't need to get like granular as fuck with those sort of things. If you know enough to get your client, which most people are gen pop, a result in terms of the physical side of things, the physiological side of things, the food, the training, from then on, I genuinely, and I am biased because obviously I've got the amplifier, you should be sinking your time and your attention, your resources into psychology, people skills, the mindset element, the emotional regulation, like I've just said, because there was, I don't know how many resources were in your resource area, and there was still, even after I'd finished working with you, there's probably half of them that I'd never even looked at. But like, it was that really helped me connect with my goals and stick to things, and like, however you want to frame it. We talked about food a lot less than I thought we were going to talk about food, considering I was coming to work on relationship with food. But at the end of it, it was fucking, it was mad. So if there are coaches watching this and you're like, if you've got a physical quote unquote result from clients already, okay, you know everything you need to know about the body. Like, don't worry about it. Okay. The very fact that you've got results with people shows you that you know enough. Go and learn about this sort of stuff. The books you've just mentioned, I was, everything that I know now is just from signing up with different coaches, with Paul, with yourself, and going, right, what we're almost like guinea pigging myself.
Yeah.
What's the process? I know obviously you've got Amelia, which is like a fucking secret weapon, right? When you guys are developing tools and putting them together and these sort of resources, is it literally just by guinea pigging it on yourselves? I know a lot of them are like evidence-based, research-based, because like I said, for me, it was that made the massive difference in working with you guys, is that I knew that if I was struggling with a certain thing, you could go, oh, well, this week we're going to do this. And it wasn't, it made me feel like safe, I guess, that you weren't just winging it, that I wasn't going, I'm really struggling with this thing, and you're going, oh, well, let's try this. I was going, I'm really struggling with this, and you go, yep, we've got this thing. And there was never any like, I was never unsure. So what would you recommend to people that maybe are listening to this now and they're like, actually, yeah, I do know everything that I need to know about fat loss. I do know everything that I need to know about training. I want to now start building out this area of my coaching service.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, try it out on yourself.
Yeah.
Get personal feedback. Start implementing it with clients. See how it lands. Like, so much. I love that you're like, didn't feel like we were winging it. But I mean, so much of the work that we do, if we think kind of like mindfulness, emotional regulation work that we do with clients, somatic work, it is a bit trial and error, in that, not that these tools don't work, but not every tool is going to work for every person, because we're completely wired differently. So it is like, go away and try this. Let me know how you get on. And if it doesn't work, that's okay, because we've got a whole host of other things that we can work through. I mean, at the moment, I'm slowly working my way through a course to become trauma-informed practitioner. And there's so much fantastic stuff that I'm learning on that I'm like, I can see that working with clients, but I just want to see it on myself first.
Yeah.
Which is interesting at times, but like, do I want to touch that just yet?
Yeah, it's like, we'll look at that one in about 6 weeks' time when I'm feeling a little bit better, and this issue. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. You start some of the stories that you've been putting up whilst you've been doing this qualification have been funny. You're like, yep, definitely needed to answer these questions.
Oh, well, I mean, so I'm doing this as like not that I still stuck in overachiever, but while I'm having a year out from counselling. So I was like, I'll do something just to keep me ticking over. Why open that kind of worms? But sure, I'll come out better for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like you said, if it means that you've got to go through it and try these things out on yourself and see it actually in practice, being on the receiving end, that can only make you a better coach. If you're going to start to implement those things with clients, like we spoke about earlier, if you've been on the receiving end of it, it gives, at least you've got that kind of like, right, I've got a little bit more empathy now because I know what this feels like. I've been through this myself. I can connect, I can relate. So outside of people, if people don't want to go away and do like a counselling course or go back to uni or open uni or anything like that, I've told so many people to do EIQ. I need some sort of commission code, man. It's mad. Is there anywhere else, whether it's like YouTube or podcasts, or I know you mentioned a few books already, where people can go and start learning about this stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, certainly like YouTube, but also there's a great site, and not to discount EIQ by any means, but PESI, PESI has some fantastic courses around like self-compassion, body image, emotional regulation, some level of food relationship. And I'm not gonna lie, they've always got a sale on. They're very, very affordable. So fantastic.
I might go and have a look myself. I've never heard of that, to be fair.
Yeah, do it. Highly recommend.
Yeah, nice. I'm the same. Like, I don't even work with clients anymore, and I'm still like, I want to learn more. I want to like, I think that's something that coaches need to have, though. I think that it's that kind of like acceptance that you don't know everything. You're never going to know everything. You should constantly be working on this because you're dealing with people. Like, it's not a small thing, right? It's not like you're not dealing with binary this or that. Like sort of things. You're dealing with human beings. So yeah, I'm definitely going to go and have a look at that. And then I'm going to send
slightly. I agree on that, in that you always want to be learning and growing and upskilling, and this is probably based on the type of clients that I work with, is that you also just want to have some time to apply what you know, and see what works well, and build your method, build your tools, and then upskill.
This is a conversation that I have with the Amplifier clients. I get asked a lot, like, what books can you recommend? What this can you recommend? What podcast episodes should I listen to? And like I say this all the time. When I first discovered Audible, I was like, right, let's fucking go. I'm gonna do every personal development. You actually set me a task once, I don't know if you remember, to read but not to make sure it wasn't a personal development book.
Yeah.
And you were like, you need to stop doing this. But I got Audible and I was like, fucking let's go. Every single one of them. And my list on Audible, there's like 80 odd books in there that I've listened to. I then stopped myself and I started picking out ones and re-listening to them. And I think there's maybe 4 that I'm actually implementing things with. And let me tell you, implementing the things from those 4, shock horror, has had much bigger impact on me as a person and actually my business and all that sort of stuff than listening to 80 books. So you are right. And again, it's one of the reasons why the Amplifier is built the way it is. These are tools. Go and use them with your clients. Like, come back and tell me how it went, and then we'll look at it. Like, there's this whole, like, with how much information and knowledge is out there, if you're just consuming, again, like, it's no good, right? Knowledge is not power, and applied knowledge is power. You've got to go away and actually do something with it.
If you think of it from a client perspective, if you're constantly throwing new things that you've learned at them every week, are they actually going to be implementing anything of any use and understanding what actually works for them? Or is it just I don't know, I felt okay, but now you're giving me something new and I don't actually know what feels best for me?
Yeah, and it's almost overwhelming for them because they're like, hold on, I thought I was doing all right, and now you're telling me now we need to focus on this, and now we need to focus on this. So am I doing all right? Or like, yeah, it's mad. So last couple of questions is, what's your favorite part about what you do?
I genuinely love all of and it kind of similar to what you were saying, in like the coaching becomes so much less about the food or body, and it's all of the wins outside of that, like clients that are enjoying holidays with their kids and can eat freely, or wear the swimsuit, clients that have broken up from toxic relationships or moved halfway across the world because they realize like they're not actually fulfilled in what they've been doing here, and finally have the confidence in themselves to just do stuff. Like, that's the stuff that makes me happy. And I didn't actually post it because I did a really cheesy story, and it was genuinely on Sunday evening. I was like, I am psyched to like get back to check-ins on Monday morning. Like, and I'm not super strict with my WhatsApp over the weekend, but when clients message me, I'm like, oh, what do they want? And it was like, again, just nice wins over the weekend. I'm like, this is great.
I know that sounded like one of those questions that you kind of like ask everybody at the end of a podcast, but I don't. You're the only person on this season series, whatever, of these episodes that I've asked that, because I knew that you'd have an answer like that because of the work that you guys do. No, I'm serious. Like, I would go as far as saying that the work that we did together did change my life, because I came to you with an issue, and I think I'm very, I don't know if it's like type 1 or type 2, I don't know which one it is. Very like, I need to fix, I've got this issue, I need to fix this thing, so we're going to do this. And I came to you with an issue that I knew I needed to fix. Like I said, I've said this already, and I genuinely didn't think that I'd be able to. And we got it done, and it was absolutely mint. And I'm still applying all of the stuff now. And again, I'm now working with, let's say, a transformation coach, the transformation coach. But the conversation that I had with him was, I've done this work. I know what my values are. I know what I am willing to do. I know what I'm not willing to do. I need to get this fat off me because I'm fucking sick of it. and we had a very good conversation, and it's enabled me now to go away and do what I need to do in terms of the physical side of things while still maintaining that relationship with food. So the reason that's why I asked you that question is because it is like, the term life-changing gets thrown around a lot with coaching, but it changed my life.
Yeah, I had 2 yesterday clients that were finishing up, and they both, and I was like, oh, I don't even care. I want people to know that this shit can change your life.
Yeah, it can, and good. You should want people to know. You should be fucking shouting about it from the rooftops, mate. Particularly for, and I genuinely believe, particularly for coaches, because I have no doubt in my mind that if I was still coaching clients, it would have had a massive positive impact on them as well. So I do think that people need to know about it, and I do think that people need to know more about it. And I remember reading, I think Amelia might have shared it a while back, that people will, like, on average, people will apply to work with you 4 times before they eventually actually do it, or something like that. And I do get it. I do get that, because it's almost like the admittance that, holy fuck, right? If we're at this stage, there's some work that needs to be done, and it's not going to be nice, but I can't recommend it enough. So, final question, the one that I do ask everybody: where can people find you? What have you got going on? Where do you want to direct people to? Go wild. I'll plug it all, and I'll drop it all in the notes below as well.
So socials, Anna_ETPHD coaching. Drop me an email, anna@amelia.fitness. Listen to the ETPHD podcast. If you are interested, whether it's personal or with clients, listen to my own podcast, A New Normal, all about chronic illness and pain. Yeah, just reach me whichever way you prefer.
And also, because you forgot about it, coaches that want to build a business, go on.
Yeah, probably should speak about ETPHD mentoring as well. So with that, there's the option for business only support, or working with your business alongside coaching too. Oh,
sick. I didn't know you did that. That's the killer combination.
We've got it all covered.
That's the killer combination. No, nice one, mate. I imagine people will be coming and checking all those things out. So thank you very much for that. There's a load of value in there, and I've really enjoyed it. And I will speak to you soon.
Cheers.